For most of Kamala Harris's campaign, there was no formal section on her website that discusses what she supports, what is her policy agenda, what is she going to do when she actually gets the job, until now. Now, Kamala Harris has a section on her website detailing her vision for the country, which is great because she wants to be leader of the free world. And of course, as a pro-life activist, I am interested as to what she has to say about abortion. Now, I have some idea of what she thinks about abortion. I've seen her rhetoric, I've heard what she has to say, but the erroneous and stupid principles that she holds with her best friend Tim Walz are now formally written out on the website. And they're ready for me to react to. But I'm not going to do it alone. I, of course, have none other than @ProLifeSam here to join me. Sam, thank you so much for being here.
Hi, James. I'm really excited about this.
Well, let's get right into it, Sam. As discussed, I'm going to read the 3 paragraphs that Kamala Harris now has on her website discussing the abortion issue. So it begins with a title that simply says, "Restore and Protect Reproductive Freedom." Now, this is a mischaracterization of the issue. Pro-lifers are not trying to take away your ability to choose when to have sex, when to engage in the act that creates a child. That would be reproduction. The way that they're framing this is to almost conflate contraception against conception with abortion. This idea that you get to choose when you have a baby. Use contraception if you don't want to have a child, but you still want to engage in sex, is the way that they think. They being pro-choicers here. But in abortion, we're not talking about not having a child. We're talking about killing a child. We're talking about ending the life of a unique individual human organism. Sam, anything to say about that title?
No, you're exactly right. Reproductive freedoms, but all they actually are talking about is ending the life of existing children that have already been reproduced. So it's just a fun way to twist it. And I'd say more than twist, they're just straight up lying about what we're talking about here.
And there's 2 things that I want them to account for. It's a little bit further here on this idea of reproductive freedom and it being core to the human rights that women have. First of all, would the argument then be that if you do not have access to abortion, you are not free? Or if you're not able to use abortion, you are not free? So what about a woman who can't get pregnant, who will never have the need for abortion? Not actually using abortion? Would that mean that she is not free? And then what about men? Men don't have this entitlement to end pregnancy because, of course, men can't get pregnant. But why shouldn't they? If we are all for equality, then how could you not then say that if that is the case, then men should also have this entitlement? You could go even further and say that if you believe that men and women are equal, which pro-choicers tend to believe, then how is it that for men and women to be equal, as they are cashing it out, women need a special right to abortion? They need a right that men could never actualize, that men just don't have. And so I think that I said 2, but there's 3 really interesting avenues to explore there. But we will move on, unless Sam has something to add there.
The only thing I was going to add is claiming that women need the right to kill our children in order to be equal to men is extremely misogynistic. It's just a direct attack on women's anatomy. Being pregnant, even if you don't want to, getting pregnant is a sign of health for women. It means our bodies are working properly. If we can't get pregnant during sex, that means something's probably physically wrong if our bodies are unable to do that. So again, saying that we need the right to end a pregnancy abruptly by killing our children in order to be free, that's such a low view on women in general.
I agree. Let's get into the 3 paragraphs that are under this restore and protect reproductive freedoms. Paragraph 1. Vice President Harris and Governor Walz trust women to make decisions about their own bodies and not have the government tell them what to do. what I would say is this. The government telling you what to do is in part as to why the government exists. To say that you are just fighting for an individual's ability to use their own body is really to say nothing at all. Because we are also fighting for an individual's ability to make decisions about their own body. We're fighting for a child's ability to do that. And when you kill the child, they will never be able to actualize or utilize that ability. And so you have to account for that. And so just to say that you are fighting for people's bodies, well, so are we. That is what politics is about. We are not just spirits, we're not just souls floating around, we are both body and soul in unity, and that is who you are. Sam, anything to say about that very first paragraph?
Yeah, I just want to point out to the average person who's reading this, this is just a pretty way of saying that we should have abortion up until birth. If the government can't restrict or limit abortion, that's legal for any reason. That means we can have abortion all 9 months of pregnancy. A lot of people get that confused because they don't use the exact words, abortion up until birth. But that's obviously very intentional because it's an extremely unpopular position to hold. It says here that nearly 7 out of 10 Americans believe that abortion should be limited in some capacity. So most of us are against abortion up till birth. So they have to word it in a way where it kind of goes over most people's heads.
Moving on to the second paragraph here, Donald Trump handpicked members of the United States Supreme Court to take away reproductive freedom. And now he brags about it. In his words, I did it, and I'm proud to have done it. That wasn't the best Trump voice, but you guys understand. He even called for punishment for women who have an abortion. A few things I want to say here. If abortion is unjustified, if abortion is intrinsically evil, which both Sam and I agree on, then there should be a level of punishment for a woman who breaks the law and does what is evil to do. Now, there's different degrees at which something may be unjustified. I'm not claiming that everything that is wrong to do should be punished. But in this case, to prove it is unjustified is going to be rooted in the idea that you are killing. I almost said unaliving like I'm on TikTok, but I'm not. I'm on YouTube, so I can say killing and be as accurate as possible. You are killing an innocent child. And in any situation, there would be punishment for that action. So it is not that absurd if you understand the pro-life position to assume that to be the case. And I think that this comes from not just a political attack to try to paint pro-lifers as tyrannical people that want to punish women, but I do think that it's also rooted in this idea that they don't understand what we're saying. So if you understood what we were saying, this idea that we want to punish people really wouldn't be that crazy, and it would be, I would say, more acceptable, because if our position is correct, then you should punish people that are doing this incredibly evil thing. Sam, what do you got?
Yeah, I completely agree with you there. The other thing I wanted to add is that, of course, he's not taking away reproductive freedom. Again, this isn't about reproduction. If you're wanting an abortion, you've already reproduced. So, second of all, he didn't actually take away rights to abortion. Roe was overturned, leaving abortion up to the states, so that way the people can decide where they're most comfortable limiting abortion. So he didn't actually take away anyone's right to abortion anyways. And after Roe was overturned, there's actually been more abortion, not less abortion. That's because red states, which there is lower abortion rates, but now we also have the blue states who have higher abortion rates, and overall it's trending up. So again, he didn't take anyone's right to abortion away, even though we wish he would have.
Yes, if he were more conservative and more on the right side of history, if he agreed with Sam and I more, he would have done so, and we would have loved him for it. But he didn't, so Kamala, libs, relax. Okay, he's not that guy. Maybe one day we will get somebody who is that guy. Let's move on. Since Roe v. Wade was overturned, Vice President Harris has driven the administration's strategy to defend reproductive freedom and safeguard the privacy of patients and providers. As governor, Tim Walz led Minnesota to become the first state to pass a law protecting a women's right while the city burned to the ground due to BLM. Oh wait, no, that's not in there. A woman's right to choose following the overturning of Roe. A right to choose to do what? I've already discussed this point in this video, and I discuss it all the time on my live streams, but just saying that you should have a right to choose says pretty much nothing at all. It doesn't demonstrate that you actually are entitled to act in the way that you think you should be entitled to act. For me to say that I have a right to do something, and somebody who disagrees might say, well, why do you have that right? How is it the case that you are entitled to act that way? This is like saying, well, because I'm able to do it. And fundamentally, that is really what the extent at which their argumentation goes. Sam, on that first part there, what do you have to say, if anything?
Yeah, I actually am just going to agree with you there. I don't have much to add to that first part, but later I have some stuff to add to that second part, so I'll wait there.
Perfect. So continuing on, around the middle of this very final paragraph of Comrade Kamala's website, Vice President Harris has traveled America and heard the stories of women hurt by Trump abortion bans, stories of couples just trying to grow their family, cut off in the middle of IVF, treatments, stories of women miscarrying in parking lots, developing sepsis, losing their ability to ever have children again, all because doctors are afraid they might go to jail for caring for their patients. As president, she will never allow a national abortion ban to become law. And when Congress passes a bill to restore reproductive freedom nationwide, she will sign it. Okay. There's a few things I want to say here, and then I'm going to throw it to Sam and hear her remarks on this final paragraph. Doctors are afraid of going to jail. She is putting tough medical situations fully on the pro-life movement. Now, a question that I always ask individuals when I'm debating this issue on my live streams is, how many women have died due to pro-life legislation? How has pro-life legislation made, in principle, the medical industry worse for women? Well, the answer to the question I asked is always 0. And this is usually surprising to people, but that is the answer. 0 women have died due to pro-life legislation. Now, I will say, is it possible that there are practical issues with our medical system? Sure, I would say that. There is medical malpractice. Doctors make mistakes. They are not perfect. They are fallen just like you and I. But to put that on the pro-life movement, I think is absurd to do. And there's no good reason to do so. One more thing I will say one more point I will say before I kick it to Sam. Reproductive freedom nationwide, and she will sign it. If you need the freedom at one point in the pregnancy, then you must need it at all points in the pregnancy. Now, if you're pro-life, this should make a whole lot of sense to us. Because if it's wrong to kill a baby at a certain stage of development, then it is always wrong to kill said baby. In the same way, if you fundamentally are owed this ability to get this abortion, it is a human right, it is your moral entitlement bestowed upon you by some sort of pagan god that doesn't exist, then it will be the case that it doesn't matter what stage of development the baby's in. To not have that ability to kill a child, you will not have that reproductive freedom. And so you must be for abortion all 9 months. Sam, what do you have to say about that final section there?
Yeah, well, the first thing I wanted to know is there's no such thing as a Trump abortion ban. So that's a funny thing for them to bring up. Trump never banned abortion anywhere. He hasn't done it one time. Again, he was instrumental to overturning Roe, but that itself did not ban abortion. Each state decides for their own limits on abortion, and the states are decided by the people. So there's no ban that Trump went and did himself. The second of the thing, this is a really funny point for them to bring up on here because they don't realize it, but they're telling on themselves here when they talk about all these awful things happening. It says here, women are cut off from IVF treatments, they're miscarrying in parking lots, they're developing sepsis, and it says all because doctors are afraid that they might go to jail for caring for their patients. So it's not all because of these laws or these quote unquote Trump abortion bans that don't exist. The laws themselves are not the issue. There is no law that bans IVF. There's no law that bans miscarriage treatment, and there's no law that bans sepsis. So what we're talking about is doctors who are, according to them, afraid they can go to jail for caring for their patients. And the main point I want to focus on here is what doctors, because it's not pro-life doctors who are not treating these patients. Pro-life doctors want abortion to be illegal, and they've been treating with abortion being illegal, and they treat these women with no issues. They're not being jailed because they're not having abortions. They're treating these women without any fear. So if there's a pro-choice doctor who is unable to treat women unless abortion is completely legal electively for non-medical reasons, they shouldn't be treating in the first place. They should be taking a step back and researching these laws, because these laws are not actually punishing anybody for treating women for these issues. So just wanted to point that out, because these pro-choice doctors are dangerous, but that's not an issue with the law. That's an issue with people being so pro-abortion they can't even take care of women.
Well, Sam, that's all we have for KamalaHarris.com and what seems to be pivotal for her campaign. It's only represented in 3 short paragraphs, probably less than 200, 300 words. So that's all we can react to today. I do want to thank Sam for coming aboard and giving insight. I surely appreciated it.
Thanks for having me on.
Yes, of course. And if you want to follow Sam on Twitter, she goes by @ProLifeSam. I will link that in the bio below. If you want to hear me talk about this issue with pro-choicers, I would consider following me on TikTok. That will also be linked below, as well as my Discord server. That is always a good time, a great opportunity to be in a growing and a fun community, let's say, where you can up your wizardly status. But to figure out what that means, you'll have to join the community. But that'll be it from me today, everybody. I wish you all the best, and I will see you next time. God bless.